Good morning. It's Saturday, October 21st. My name is Rene Zambrano. We're here again with another World War II veteran. We're interviewing Mr. Joe Alcoser in for the U.S. Latino Latina World War II Oral History Project. We're here in National City at his office in California. Before we begin to the interview today, sir, let's begin. Let us begin by acknowledging your time and effort and the fact that you have volunteered to make this project possible. I would also like to explain the purpose of the interview for the records by reading the interview form, release form. The release form will give us the right to use the videotape for educational purposes. The purpose of the U.S. Latino and Latina World War II Oral History Project is twofold. First is to salvage the stories of U.S. Latinos and Latinas of the World War II generation, and second is to develop a structured audio, video, and photographic archive that will be accessible to scholars, journalists, and others interested in learning more about what life was like for U.S. Latinos and Latinas before, during, and after World War II. The archives will be housed at the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection and at the University of Texas Center for American History. Having said that, sir, will you go ahead and you sign it already? Let's great. And I'll go ahead and sign it myself, and we're ready to begin this interview. Tell us about your family, where your family comes from, where you grew up.
So, first of all, my mother was born across the border up around Piedras Negras, Coahuila, Mexico. And she worked in the United States. She did housework in Del Rio, and somewhere along the line, my dad met her. He brought her across to Texas in 1922 and married her. And actually, he didn't marry her, but they started living together because they didn't get married until 1932. In the meantime, majority part of the family was born, and he was married at a hospital because the nurses were nuns. And he had had an accident, and while they were there, they were married. They lived together for over 60 years till my mother passed away, and then my dad passed away in 1987. But there was a long process of hardships up until the time we went into the service. And many of us went into the service because of throughout our lives, our dads had always said, that we were responsible to answer the call of duty, and we were obligated to defend the United States. Even though at the ripe age of 17, I actually wanted to go at 16, but I was too young, and they didn't sign my paperwork until I was 18. I decided to go in the Navy. I was the first one. There was a long stretch of hardships in regards to earning a living. We all went to work at the age of 5. As the family grew up to the age of 5, and moving from camp to camp, farm workers, and there were no facilities. It was really, really hard because we used to sleep or live under trees, and my dad would just bought a tarp, and he would just lay out a tent-like structure under a tree. And that was from farm to farm, from the South Texas from Taft and Centon, Texas, down by Corpus Christi, Texas, and meandered through the state of Texas, all the way to northern part of Texas, just following the crops.
Was that was that typical for many Mexicans of that period to not?
Yes, it was typical of all Mexicans that were farm workers. Even people that owned a little bit of land down in South Texas, they would be trucked from farm to farm up through the state, all the way to uh, Lubbock and Plainview, Texas. And thing about it is that we used to encounter friends that we met way down in South Texas. Um, this went on for a lifetime until I went in the service. In the winter, the few months that we would go to school on a steady basis, we would get back to Melvin, which is our base, and there we would live in my uncle's farm on borrowed houses. No, we didn't pay rent, because my dad would contribute part of his work towards the rent and so on.
How was your experience? How did you manage to, or if you can tell us, how do you balance school and work? Since you started working early, did you go to school at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact, no matter what part of the state we were in, when September 1st came around, I headed for home, either hitchhiking or on a bus. And I would stay with one of my aunts or one of two aunts. Um, and I would go to school until the folks got back into town, and then I'd go on back to the family. And they actually never liked for me to go, but I insisted on going back and trying to get as much schooling as I could. And that's why I was able to get to the 11th grade, which I was in the 11th grade when I volunteered and went off to war. And I went off to war. Didn't finish school until after I got back. And I got back about the same month that I had quit, and finished school about the same month when school ended in a different town. So I had to get proof of my transcripts from the other school, which had burned down. But the principal had managed to save some records, and he gave me a letter stating that I had actually gone to school to the 11th grade, and I moved on to the other town where I graduated from.
How was the how was your experiences in school?
That I had top grades. I had top grades in spite of everything else. I concentrated on learning as much as possible, and I always had good grades. As a matter of fact, the other youngsters used to congregate in my home in the evenings for me to help them out, and I did.
How were Mexicans treated in Texas?
There's a lot of discrimination, quite a bit of discrimination. We were, as a matter of fact, I didn't go into the school, which was supposed to be all white, until I was about to graduate to the 8th grade. And at that time, because they used to have what they call the uh, Mexican Ward School separated out there. And so one day, our teacher was Guadalupe Perez and Emiterio Perez, la señorita Renteria. They insisted, or they had been having meetings to get us integrated into the school and eliminate the little school down here. So we went on a demonstration. We spent all day down there, and they had the sheriff and the highway patrol and other police officers around there for us uh, to stay in order. In other words, it was a peaceful demonstration, but we were able to infiltrate into that school. Uh,
Where do you guys demonstrate it?
well, we were more or less just demanding to be allowed to go to this school. It was new.
Mm-hmm.
The school was new, and some people had been transferred. Some seniors had come in from other outlying areas. Uh, I remember Erlinda Herrera, Guadalupe Garcia, Henry Garcia, uh, Luciano Herrera, Guadalupe Perez. They had all come through this school only because they felt that there was nowhere else they could go. But still, they kept the Mexican grade school for Mexicans,
Mm-hmm.
and we were demanding that that little school be gotten out of the way.
So Mexicans were segregated then from.
Yes.
Um, your own experiences. How do you Was there any racism towards you going to school?
Yes, there was. Some people would say that it was just kids fighting or not getting along with one another, but some of the whites would make it a point to wait for us and pick a fight. Or I remember a couple of them that they would wait on the trail going home, and they would wait right close to where there would be cactuses, and they'd shove us in the cactus. Uh, this happened, or this ended when one of my cousin teachers saw this guy shove me into a cactus plant, and he came in pretty strong, and he really got hard on this guy. He almost hit him. He didn't hit him, but he told him, that the next time that he'd best stand uh, ready to tangle with him because he was not going to be tolerating that anymore. So that didn't happen anymore. But there was other signs of discrimination in the school, in the football team, for example. We were trying to do our best to play good football, be a good sportsman, and all that. But it seemed always that we had two enemies. We had the team we were working on, and then we had the meanies that would make it a point to come over and hurt us. I remember one time when I was just my neck was just about broken, and I could hardly stand it anymore, and everything was over, and this guy was just still on my neck and calling me just
Calling you what?
names
Such as?
such as dirty Mexican pepper belly son of a bitch. He was the whole gamut. He was about the meanest guy that we had in school. He was really against a Mexican, especially if we played in the team. And I was for maybe a couple of years, I was the only Mexican in the team until we got a couple of more that came in from other schools. But they would always pick on us.
You said something interesting. Pepper valleys. What do you refer to that? Why did they refer Mexicans to pepper valleys?
Well, the thing is, they felt. I think now that I think about it, that they were making fun of us because we ate chili and all that. And I say, right now, I get a big kick out of it because the biggest chili eaters are the whites nationwide. But that's what we were called. And we felt bad, you see. I felt very bad. I used to feel very bad.
So it was a way to degrade Mexicans, maybe?
Hmm?
It was a way to try to degrade Mexicans? Did
Yes,
that
absolutely.
feel-
Absolutely. Yes.
Did you how did segregation make you feel? The segregation that you experienced at the time.
uh, was sometimes it was pretty hard to take, especially when I would be hurt by either fighting or I would cry because I felt they was helpless. We were helpless, and there was no one to help us. We just had to, do the best we could and take it, and just hope, just hope that something would happen to them somewhere. They would, tangle with somebody their size and get theirs.
How did all the anti-Mexican feelings affect you? Did you develop any racism yourself, for example?
So, possibly so, you see, because even to this day, I don't uh, go along with the idea of the white man. In other words, it's something that I never forgot. I will work with them and deal with them and treat them all fair and square, but that feeling has never gone away. Even when I go back to reunions, the feeling is there. And I've gone back to a couple of reunions 50 years later.
What kind of feelings do you have towards white, maybe?
Yeah. Well, there was a couple of reunions ago, 2 years ago. I went down there and I was, greeting my cousins. And by this time, there's a lot of cousins that graduated out of my school. And there was a young man that he was told, this is Joe Alcoser. He went to school here 50 years ago. And so, Alcoser, he said, yeah. Remember when I used to whip your ass and so on? So I said, yeah. You want to try it now? The 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 rebel in me came back right now, and he laughed. Said, "No, no." He said, "I don't want to try it now." And that's just an incident that happened. That the guy went back to so far as to say things like that. And of course, I answered in a rebellious way.
How do your how do your parents deal with the Great Depression? Your family?
Yeah, they just like everybody else. We receive food from supplemental food, butter, meat, hams, staples from the government. And my dad was told. I heard some men tell my dad, "You shouldn't take food from the government because in case of war, and there's going to be a war, eventually they're going to take your sons." And my dad said, "That's what they're for. They're to defend their country." They dealt with it pretty good. My mother would make that food last us for the whole month, supplemented with other foods from the gardens and so on.
Like,
Oh, like veggies from the gardens, and then she would beans from the garden also. Because we learned that we had to grow our own. We didn't realize there was a depression, of course. I didn't. I just thought it was a way of life. And but later, I started thinking as we went along, and everybody would talk about the Great Depression, and I got to thinking, say, we lived there. We went through the whole mess, and we did it. We worked it out pretty good.
what did your dad do during that period? Was he employed or did he become unemployed?
He
And mom?
he was my dad. was one of those fortunate ones that got a government job.
What kind of job?
He got a truck driving job on the WPA.
Mm-hmm.
So work project administration, and they would haul dirt for the roadways, for the highways, and so on. And he was one of the ones that got a little higher wage than the rest of them because he used to get $1.50 a day for driving that truck. And I remember that he drove it as long as they had work, as long as they, because the way the WPA worked there in my hometown, the people would work when there was no work in the fields. When there was work in the fields, the men would go off and work in the fields, including my dad. And then when it came time to move on, because the cotton season was opening down in South Texas, he would load us up in a little old jalopy, and it'd take us 3 days to get to Corpus Christi from my hometown. It's only 300 miles, but it was a 3-day trip. A lot of flats on the road, and there was hundreds of people on both sides of the freeway sleeping on the freeway. There was no rules against not sleeping on the freeways, but there were some towns that we couldn't stay within the city limits, you know.
Were there any other programs for the youth that during this period that helped the youth during this the depression?
Not that I was aware of. Certainly not in my hometown.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that your brother worked with the National Youth Administration.
Yeah, they had a youth program
Mm-hmm.
where they were they were hiring the youth that could handle the brick and the block. And my brother actually helped build a library that still exists in my hometown. Mm-hmm. And my name is the first one there that went in the military at that time. A little plaque that they have in the middle.
What's the name of the library?
Melvin Library.
Okay.
Melvin Library.
In Melvin, Texas?
Yes. Melvin, Texas.
Okay.
And my brother assisted the masons that laid out that little building. It's a pretty good sized building.
And because you went to the military first, your name was one of the first ones that was there today,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there.
It's still there today. It's still there today.
I have during that period, what kind of wages did Mexicans receive in the fields, and did Mexicans experience discrimination with owners?
We received quite a bit of discrimination. Some farmers did not supply water, clean water. Oh, the days were we had to do the best we could with what we had, and the barrels that they used to bring the water in were rusty and dirty, and they would bring in just little una moca de aluminio de tomate or así to drink water, and everybody would drink from that cup. But we had to drink it, you know, no other way out. And sometimes we would have to, the rows of cotton were so long that we sometimes got so thirsty we had to walk all the way to, they didn't have an in between. We had to walk over there and get the water and drink it. By the time we got back to where our cotton sack was, we were already thirsty again. But we had to just do the best we could.
What about wages? How were?
Wages were uh, $1 every 100 pounds. So there were some people that were good. Some were better than others. Some would. I mean, all of us were good. We went up to over 100, or 500 pounds a day, because all of my family and my uncles and all, we learned to be good cotton pickers. And it's hard, but we managed to get the $5 a day, or 500 pounds
Each?
each. Yeah.
Was that picking cotton have any physical maybe implications on your hands maybe, or
Yep.
damage your hands?
Yeah, it damaged the hands on both sides of the fingers right there. And mostly we had them taped. Some of them used gloves. Our gloves would wear out, and we'd do without the gloves because the gloves would wear out. But then there was the tape always.
You
Always.
guys used to tape your fingers?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you then become involved with the military after you continue working and going to school? Where do you attend junior high school and high school?
I attended Melvin High School.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I went,
Mm-hmm.
Melvin High School. But I did not graduate out of that because it burned down before we came back from the service. So my family had moved to a little town by the name of Menard, and that's where I graduated, in Menard. It's only 13 miles away.
During this period, during this period of the depression, there was a repatriation act, or against Mexicans, or many Mexicans were being sent back to Mexico,
Uh-huh.
either through force or voluntarily. Did you experience anything like that, or remember seeing anything in your town?
A couple of my uncles, where they accepted the repatriation and went back to Mexico. They went back to Piedras Negras, and also to Villacuña. And they never returned. But they abandoned their farms here in Texas and just took off, never to be seen again. I saw my uncle Damian once, and that's all. About 20 years after he left. Came through my hometown, and he was heading nowhere, looking for somewhere to make a living.
Did you ever get a chance to find out how did they survive in Mexico? Did he ever tell you it was? Well, did he ever share with you if it was good or better down there, or worst?
They always came. Those that came from Mexico would come in with that sad story about there's no way to make a living there, and they would cross illegally, and they'd be looking for work, for a better way of life. And some of them just kept on heading north.
Did your brothers, before we get into your experience about going into the Navy, volunteer, a little bit more about school. Did your brothers and sisters graduate from the same high school you went to, or?
No, as a matter of fact, all of my brothers graduated from. First of all, Sam did not finish school. He dropped out at about 6 years. I mean, at the 6th grade. Rusty dropped out at the 7th. Gus dropped out at the 10th grade. The rest of them, Paul and Art, finished high school in Wasco, California. And my sisters finished high school here in San Diego, at San Diego High School. My older sister was she wanted to go to school, but my dad pulled her out at the I don't know how old she was. She was in the seventh grade, and my dad said, "That's enough. You have to stay home and take care of the home." So my dad was he wasn't illiterate, he's the old fashioned one. Women don't need an education, and so he pulled her out of school. She never forgave him for that.
Just um, what do you mean by that? She never forgave him for that.
Well, she always in conversations in the future she would always bring it up. Usted tuvo la culpa, no me dejó acabar la escuela. And my dad wouldn't say anything. She got married soon after that, and she moved to California way back in the 46.
In Melvin, Texas, where you attended school, were Mexicans allowed to speak Spanish at schools?
We spoke Spanish whether they liked it or not. We spoke Spanish. We spoke English, broken English, because I didn't know jack and nothing, because I was not learning it. And the Anglo didn't like it, but we spoke it anyway. They would beat us up for it, but we spoke it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Did Mexico get or students get punished for speaking Spanish?
No, not that I remember. They did not get punished. They actually, the teacher seems like they didn't care what we spoke out there in the playground. When we were inside of the rooms, yeah, we would talk English, but outside, we'd speak Spanish.
So, share with us how you got involved with the military with the military.
Well, when the war started in 1941, we were all ready to go. I was 16 at the time, and my mother said she would never sign the papers because I was not of age. And I kept begging for a couple of years, and then finally she said, "Okay, you can go." I was a senior at the time, and so they signed the paperwork, and I caught the bus and went on to Dallas to a recruitment station. And I was there for a couple of days while we were indoctrinated, and we passed our physical. They sent us home and told us to get things ready because we were going to be leaving for the training school in about a week.
Why did you volunteer?
I felt that was the only way out. Number one. Number two, my dad always said, always defended that their sons and they had to go. It was the obligation of the men to defend their country. So the other thing is that we felt that maybe if we went and came back, things would be different.
Things for
treatment, non-discrimination, and all that. I came back 3 years later and it was all the same.
You said you felt the need to go because you thought that was the way out of what?
Well, here's the thing. Most of my cousins who were well-to-do, their fathers were well-to-do. We knew they were going to college, and they did. They went to college. But there were some that volunteered to go anyway. Yeah. They volunteered to go anyway. Most of them finished school before they volunteered.
Mm-hmm.
But I shouldn't say that they didn't volunteer. They were drafted. They waited to be drafted, and they had no choice. They got drafted into the army, and that's where they went. Most of the ones from my hometown survived. There was a few. Some pilots were knocked out of the air, and they didn't survive. But most of us that went and came back. I know all of my cousins, except two, came back, and those two that didn't come back were pilots. But the ones in the army, even though some of them went through some of the heaviest battles in Europe, they came back.
So brothers, including cousins, how many ended up going to war?
Out of my little hometown there, had about I would say about 100 from my hometown cousins, and that's not counting people that lived in San Antonio. A lot of Alcosers and Perez in San Antonio, and the Colungas in San Antonio, Garcias, uh, uncles, because all the Perez uncles within that age went. There was a couple of them that were turned back for illiteracy causes. They didn't know how to read or write, so they came back home early. But not until they were, because they gave them a lot of time to get them ready to learn the fundamentals in English, and that gave them an opportunity to pick up benefits, which they later, were eligible for. But we have families of six, as many as six. My uncle Anastasio had six that went in all during the war, because he had sons from two families, the older ones and the younger ones, and they all went and served during the war. We had six throughout the different wars, all the way up to Vietnam. Well, my son was in Vietnam. I went in the Navy in World War II, and so did my brother Sam, and I think Gus. The other ones picked up the other wars, like the end of Korea and the beginning of Nam.
Where was Sam and Gus? Where were they stationed?
Sam was stationed on a battleship. I believe it was the South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a battleship. Gus he went to China. He was the guardians of the American people there until the communists took over. With a rear echelon guard that saw that all the citizens got out. Then he came back. And Rusty was in Korea. He was in Korea about a year and a half. And he's the one that saw the most action actually on the ground. But he was attached to a Marine heavy artillery unit. They were engaged in more steady artillery barrages than any other outfit in the Vietnam or in the Korean War. And Paul was the next one, and he never went overseas, but he was stationed at El Toro. And from there, they took a contingent of Marines to the Nevada desert, where they exploded the atomic bombs, and they got too close and died from cancer, from radiation. And Art, the youngest one, went in and I think about 1953 or 54, and he remained there in active duty for about 12 years, and the rest of the time when he completed 30 years and got his pension out of there. And he's the youngest one. And he was all over, from little skirmishes that happened during all this period of time. So that about covers them all.
How did your community reacted to the drafting of young men, or their just families in general? What was the general reaction of drafting it? Or
For a period of time, I wasn't aware how they were doing it. But when I went and volunteered, I heard that there was two ways of going: either you get drafted or you volunteer.
mm-hmm.
And most of the people accepted that. They got drafted. They just drop their work tools and go and report. Maybe they all didn't accept it wholeheartedly, but they knew they had to do it or go to Mexico.
Did you hear anybody dodge the draft?
Not until after the war, when I got to San Diego. Here, there's a bunch of guys in Tijuana that dodged the draft, and they're still there. They can't come back. They're waiting for them.
Really?
Yeah.
Until today, you mean?
Yeah, today. One died just about 2 weeks ago, and the wife was trying to get him buried over here, and she was able to do it. He was dead, but she was able to bring him back.
So when you got drafted, you went from Texas to where?
To Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
and from Dallas we were put in a train, and we were heading for San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
We came right in here through Tijuana, because the tracks used to come in through Tijuana until they closed it down.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we were coming, there was a lot of women just standing out top as soon as
Mexican women?
Mexican women.
Was this in Tijuana?
Tijuana, yeah.
So where they were supporting all soldiers in general, or just Mexicanos?
Just everybody that they could, They say, we could hear, pobrecito, ahí lo llevan, Here, have a taco, have some, and they would just give it to us. We appreciated that.
How did that make you feel?
See, it made me feel, I had never been to Mexico up until that time. And I said, wow, all Mexicans are the same, looking out for their own. I had a good feeling.
So then you come to San Diego, and where do you stay? Where do you train?
We trained at the Naval Training Center. All 6 of us trained at the Naval Training Center, 3 Marines and 3 sailors. And I trained for 8 weeks. About the middle of May, they sent us to San Francisco. We were through training, so they packed our bags.
This is 1943, right?
1943, and we ended up in Treasure Island for further assignment. And just a few days later, maybe a couple of weeks, we got our assignment. Was to take a ship that would take us over where our permanent station was going to be. So we headed on the little old tugboat clear to New Caledonia. Never saw land between here and New Caledonia. They fueled us somewhere in between Hawaii and New Caledonia is way, way out there. It's a French colony up by the bottom of Australia. So we got there all right. A few days later, maybe 3 weeks later, because the boat was really slow. It was a converted German tug or something, and then they packed a bunch of us in there and sent us out. The Coast Guard had 3 sailors and a chief there for the gun, little old 3-inch gun for the defense of that little ship. We're lucky we didn't get torpedoed. There were submarines all over the place. But we got there at New Caledonia, and I got temporarily assigned to working with the Seabees, building Quonset huts for food supplies and all that. And in about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks later, we got a call that we'd gotten assigned to the ships, and we were going to be taken from this ship on a transport to the New Hebrides Islands, which are closer to Australia. And there we saw the fleet of ships that we were going to go on, and we didn't know which one we were assigned to. We didn't know until a day before we got there. So they called our names and said, "You're going to be going to the USS Maryland," and they called a bunch of guys that were going to Maryland,
including you.
It's the Maryland. What's that? Well, that's a battleship. A battleship. Wow. Dang. Don't they go after the battleships first, we asked. No, they don't. They're actually afraid of the battleships. So I got assigned to the USS Maryland, the New Hebrides, and we took off. We did a lot of target practice around the island for about a month. And then a bunch of ships started coming in, and we knew something was going to happen. And there was a talk that we were going to be going into battle. We're going to take the offensive now. We're going to be taking the offensive, and we're going to go recoup the islands that we had lost. Beginning with, I don't know who Tarawa belonged to, but we started there with Tarawa and started heading on to Japan, island by island, till we got there.
What was your specific duty on the U.S. Maryland?
I was in the deck division, and the duties of the deck division is to see that everything is ship shape, see that the decks are clean always, and during battle drills, I was either attending a machine gun or sky lookout. Mm-hmm. Sky lookout is watching for planes above the horizon, if anything. Those were my duties until the end of the war.
So did you ever encounter any planes, or was put in a situation where you did you see combat from that
from that point of view?
Yeah, from that point of view,
the highest point of the ship,
mm-hmm.
because the sky lookout sit up there,
mm-hmm.
even above the fire control units, and so each one of us gets assigned. There's four pods, one on each corner here, mm-hmm. and we cover this much, and the other guy has to cover the whole. So we would report if we would see any planes that would be heading our way. and we would identify them at about 20 miles. We learned to identify the planes by the silhouette.
What kind of machines or tools did you use to identify it?
Just the binoculars.
Binoculars.
Just the binoculars.
And what type of machine guns did you hold in the USS Maryland?
We had 20 millimeters. We had 40 millimeters. We had 5-inch 38s, and we had the 16-inch guns. The 16 inches are for surface to surface, or at sea, or from ship to land. 16 inches are about 16 inches in diameter and about 7 feet tall. And they could be set to explode at a certain distance from the ship.
Were they effective?
Oh yes, absolutely, yes. Anything they hit was obliterated completely. That's the way we went through the. First of all, there was Tarawa, then there was Kwajalein, there was the Marianas, and there was the Pelelia, and then the Philippines. And when MacArthur came back in. So we started getting, or Saipan was on the way, and we got torpedoed there in Saipan. So we had to retreat to go get repaired, and we came to all the way to Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. And they repaired our ship in 17 days. They had a new bow for us, waiting for us when we got there, and we got a couple of days liberty, and we were on our way out again. And so we continued taking some of the islands between there and the Philippines, and we hit Leyte, the island of Leyte. That's where MacArthur landed. We took him back there. Mm-hmm. We left the harbor for safety because we didn't want to get caught in the little harbor there, and we went out far out to sea, and then the kamikaze planes started dropping in. That's when the Japanese, about that time, felt that they were going to lose, or they were losing, and they implemented the kamikaze suicide planes. And so we, as luck would have it, this happened, by the way, after we had demolished the Japanese Navy in the Battle of Surigao Strait. That's what happened soon after the largest sea battle that ever happened.
And where was it? Where did this take place?
Surigao Strait.
Okay.
And we fought that battle between 4 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock. It was stormy weather. Well, we could see it as the shells, projectiles were hitting the ships. This took place in October of 1944, I think it was.
Was that your biggest battle for you?
It was everybody's biggest battle. Mm-hmm. Everybody's biggest battle, because it's right now it's rated as the greatest battle ever fought at sea. There were several different little battles here. The main point being that the Japanese lost almost all of their ships there. And because actually in action time, Okinawa was by far the most heavy duty battle that we encountered, because it was close. It was close. I shouldn't say close, but it was more openly fought in the daytime, nighttime, morning, midday, afternoon, evening. Constant suicide planes. And our ships were going down. And finally, we destroyed many of them. We destroyed as many as 200 or 300 a day.
Ships?
Airplanes.
Oh, hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier you said that your ship was hit, had to go back for repairs.
Yes.
Back to Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
Um, did the torpedo that hit your ship cause any damage? Yeah, it caused
Yeah.
caused heavy damage, but did the torpedo cause any casualties in your ship? Any deaths?
One death. Got one death because our ship was in harbor, and a Betty came in meandering through the canyons and came out from the island and headed straight for the ships that were in the bay. We were all congregating in the bay, getting ready to eat supper, and somebody hollered, "There's a plane coming," and somebody identified it as a Betty, and Betty's are torpedo planes, and this is everybody run for their battle stations. So we're scrambling to get on up to our battle station, and the torpedo hit about that time. And the plane just kept meandering through the ships. And no, they couldn't shoot it. No, they couldn't shoot it because, we'd hit one another. And it ducked back into the island and went off.
You guys never got the plane?
No. And yes, the damage that it caused about approximately a 25 by 40 foot opening on the ship side over towards the bow. It damaged 27 frames. The frames are it starts from the bow of the ship, so many frames like this, and it damaged 27 of them. Destroyed my compartment, which was in the front, and I used to have pictures of that, but I don't have them anymore.
Did a kamikaze plane ever hit your ship later on? During that, around that time or any time?
Yeah. What I'm talking about is after the Surigao Strait battle in the Philippines, we were retreating to Leyte Gulf, and we would stay away from pretty close to the beach area so it'd be safe out there in the open sea. And in the evening, one evening, we got a suicide plane, and it hit us between the number 1 and number 2 turret up in the front, towards the front. And that demolished about maybe 1/3 of the front of the ship. It had 2 bombs, and they exploded underneath. After it went through the deck, the plane disintegrated on the deck. There it killed a bunch of our sailors. And the damage that it caused sent us back to Puget Sound. We had to come all the way to Washington State to get repaired. And we got new guns. We got new guns. We got quad 40 millimeters, twin 20s, and it was just great to be. We were back over here for about 30 days, and then we were going our way back.
So that kamikaze crashing on your plane cost about how many people did it kill? That
That one killed 19 of my friends because we had trained here together. We had been assigned to the ship together. And it killed a few others that were not known to me. So we saw other actions. We had other suicide attacks, but we never got hit again after we went back. We didn't get hit again until the Japanese saw that they were losing the war, and they assigned the Yamato to come and do battle with us. In other words, the Yamato was their last hope of retaliating for what we were doing to Okinawa. So they dared to put the Yamato out. And so my ship and a couple of other cruisers and another battleship were assigned to get out there in the middle of the ocean. And we were on, mind you, Okinawa is only about 300 miles from Japan. So we were assigned to go meet these people halfway. But what we feared the most was that ship outranged our guns by 5 miles. Because our range was 22 miles and theirs was 27. It was the largest battleship ever. There was 2 of them that the Japanese did. One was sunk in the battle of in the early part of the war. And then this ship we were to do battle with, and I don't know how we were going to do it, but fortunately Halsey's planes spotted the Yamato, and so they called for reinforcements, and they sunk it before we got there. It took 15 torpedoes to sink the Yamato. 15
Submarines? Or
torpedoes. Planes, torpedoes, yeah. Airplane.
So you guys never really encountered
We
it?
never encountered it, but we're happy that we never encountered it. But on the way back, they threw everything they had on it, and we caught another suicide plane. This time it was on the rear of the ship, between the 2 16-inch gun turrets, and that one destroyed about 38 guys, wiped them out. Amongst the guys was a gentleman from my hometown. His name was Luis Cedillo. He was the only guy from my hometown serving with me.
Throughout the war?
Throughout well up until that time.
How was that for you, and how did it make you feel? That
It always makes you feel very bad because you lost your friends, Still, all the deck divisions or we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
We know each other, so it makes us feel pretty bad.
Who was a commanding general during that time?
MacArthur. He was a commanding general overall, and Kincaid was the admiral in charge of the whole works. My immediate commanding admiral was Alcoser, who was in charge of the 5th Fleet. And he was our commanding general, or admiral.
For you personally, of all the battles that you fought, which one was the hardest for you? Emotionally.
Emotionally, I think the midnight battle at Surigao Strait was the worst. And
Why?
because of the unknown. You could just see the shells splashing close by your ship on each side and never knowing which one was going to hit. It was a very nerve-wracking experience.
Um, how do you feel that? I mean, you say you were feared, maybe a little bit fearful of the unknown,
Hmm.
or did you maybe feel that you were not you will not return home
I never
for that
gave
vacation?
I never gave that a thought. We went out to die, and if we lived, it was a big plus. That's on a day-to-day basis. Couldn't help it, but that's what we would think, that yeah, we're here, we're going to die, and we just don't know when.
And during that time, did you communicate with your parents? Were you communicating back and forth with your parents, or
Mm. I'm very. I'm not. I don't feel sorry for it, but I never communicated with my mother. But I sent her one letter from overseas,
hmm
and I had a girlfriend that would communicate with me, and then she stopped writing, so I stopped. I didn't communicate with anybody.
why?
The the thing of it is this: I would read other people's letters because they couldn't write or they couldn't read,
hmm
and there was nothing but sadness from home.
hmm
Always
hmm
nothing but sadness from home.
hmm
Never a cheerful letter, and so I just didn't write. I just didn't feel like I needed to.
hmm
My family would be notified if anything happens, and that's it. That was bad. I know it was. When I got home, everybody was happy that I was home. I see. Our ship had been reported sunk twice by Tokyo Rose, and so as far as they were concerned, I was gone.
By what newspaper? Tokyo.
Tokyo Rose,
Uh-huh.
Tokyo Rose. You heard of Tokyo Rose? Tokyo Rose was a lady that she was an American, but she went back to Japan for some reason, and because she was partial to Japan and their cause. And every day on the radio, everybody would go to the radio to hear what Tokyo Rose had to say. And she was always throwing a scare into the Americans, and everybody would laugh at her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're sunk. And here we are. The ship is still traveling. Tokyo Rose she was not even tried as a traitor either. She was just a lot of fun during the war, reporting false information.
What was she? Did you ever find out why she was for their cause, Japan?
No. All I know is that we don't know. I don't know whether she was um, forced to do that, report false information, or what. It was all like, for example, one of the favorites that I can remember more or less, it'll go like this. Hello, G.I. Joe. How are you doing today? You know your wife at so and so place is having a great time back there. This would, it would, of course, blow the minds of the people she was talking to. But she was talking generally about to hit someone. Hello, G.I. Joe. Tokyo Rose here. And she would report this false information from the people back over here to the GIs over there. Are you aware that your wife is going out with so and so? You should be getting back to her. Words to that effect, at Tokyo Rose.
So how was she getting access to the news or radio?
We don't know. We don't know. All we know is that she would come on at a certain hour.
On the radio? Just
Mm-hmm.
did Was there any effort to try to trace her the waves or where the?
I'm sure there were. I'm sure they knew she was in Tokyo. She was transmitting from Tokyo.
So what was something that you missed the most when you were out there in the war
What I missed the most?
from home?
Oh, tortillas, frijoles. For one, tortillas and frijoles. Of course, when we would hit a port like Hawaii or somewhere in the, we would look for Mexican restaurants to get some Mexican food. But that's what we would miss the most. Because I can't tell you that I miss school or I miss work, I miss that. I didn't. I just forgot about those things for the time being.
How do you cope with the war um, emotionally there?
They in the beginning, I was I would think back about the people that got killed and about how they looked, the burnt bodies and all, and that had an effect on me. But I recovered from that and I didn't let it bother me too much. Just just accepted that it was one of the things that had to happen in a war, and they were lucky to be alive.
When was the first time you seen a person die or get killed?
Uh, on the ship, going on the Maryland before we got into the first battle, a guy by the name of Bone hung himself.
Hung himself?
Hung himself. And I was on watch and I was going down and I saw the guy hanging there. And of course there was other people walking back and forth and we saw him about the same time. That was the first time I saw somebody kill himself. The first time I seen a death on the ship was when we were torpedoed. Was one guy that got killed at the on the boatswain's locker. The boatswain's locker is where we keep all the rope and all the necessary things for splicing rope and all of that. And that was his assigned post, and that's where he died. I saw it when they pulled him out, when they were assessing the damage they had done. The I have to go back to the Battle of Tarawa because there's where we saw the most dead at any given time because they were just floating in the water because the Marines never got to shore. Uh, they were hit by bullets while they were on the boats that were sunk and all that because they were throwing everything at them. So these bodies would flow all around the ship. And we would look at them. Those are the realities of war. We see so many dead people at one time. And on the ship, the next number of dead people that we saw was when that kamikaze hit us in the front of the ship. And the next one, of course, was when the other plane hit us and wiped out 38 of our friends.
How did that affect your morale? Maybe did that affect your morale?
Yeah, we were down for a while. It's the only thing about it that at that time they didn't feel that. Well, there was no time to counsel with us or anything. We had to work it out on ourselves.
So no counseling available for nobody. Just
No,
did people go? Did people lose it? Did you ever see anybody lose it in your ship?
I only saw one close to me. His name was Hazelwood. He lost it completely, and we had to hold him down until he got calmed down.
How did he react? How do you know that he had lost it?
Well, he got up from his sky lookout place and got up and he said something like, "Hey, he hit us, he hit us, the dirty so and so hit us." He says, "What are we going to do?" We calmed him down. "Hey, calm down. Hey, watch your station over there, because you never know. That's when the plane hits that there may be some more coming, you know. And you're not supposed to. He's not supposed to leave his post and leave that area open." And so we had to just hold him down and calm him and get him back to his station.
What what would you say was the total number of deaths in your ship from the kamikazes and torpedo?
Believe. I believe that I don't want to quote the figure, but I think it's close to 100.
100 people.
But we lost 38, and we lost 17, and there was other people that died between 3 years. Lost about 100 people. Of course, the ship has 2,500 sailors. Battleship.
Were Mexicans respected on the ship, or was during combat was it different than back home?
During combat. During combat, I mean, everybody takes care of one another. But non-combatant days, it was hard. We had the same crap we had back home. The Mexican, the pepper belly, and the
When was this during training?
no on the ship, on board ship,
Oh,
on board ship. There were some die-hard Texans and Tennesseans and Kentuckians in there that didn't look too well to Mexicans.
now was this prior to the war?
No, this is during the war,
During the war, but not during combat, right?
not during combat. During combat, we're all brothers. Take care of one another.
So how did this make you feel that, hey, I'm here fighting a war,
Heck, that's a good question. Uh, I had just hoped that when we got back home, things would be different. And we fought towards that end to end all discrimination back in this country. And we came back, and it's only been about 4 or 5. Well, no, I'll go further back. Until 1965 that things started changing, and it was changing more so because of the black movement, and some of us jumped right in the movement with Martin Luther King, and see now things will get equal, and they did to a large extent. Only a lot of Mexicans don't realize it, that black people have done a lot of good in this country. Because I recommended to, uh, while I was on the job, as a business representative for my union, that's before this job, okay? I retired from that job and started real estate in 1978. I used to tell these Mexicans that used to work in construction, you don't you don't do this to these people, especially after 1965. I said they are doing more for the country and for us. They're carrying you automatically, And what we need to do is jump right in there with them and help them. Some did, some didn't. The national thing. Even to this day, Mexicans that come from Mexico here, they gave up. Quiero comprar una casa, pero no me pongan donde haga chanates. You know. I didn't hear that. It's against the law. So what kind of home do you want and where do you want it? Bueno, quiero una bonita, uh, que tenga buenos jardines, que esté barata. Ok. ¿Qué tanto calificas? Pues me calificaron acá and me dijeron que hasta 120. Oh, te voy a poner acá en el barrio. En el barrio. Te dije que no quería donde hay chanates. What they don't know is that the barrio has changed. It's all Mexicans and South Americans. And the black have gone to better pastures. They live out there in the outskirts in the communities. ¿Ves? So what they have abandoned here, other people have taken. Negocios y todo son de mexicanos. There's an old area right there where I live, off Imperial Avenue. Todo is taken over by Mexicans. Y no son Mexicans de aquí. Unos sí son, pero la mayoría son from across the border. It's taken over.
Mm-hmm. How did High Command officers treated Mexicans?
I don't have any complaints against the officers. They had a little more class. I guess their being an officer had a lot to do with their training and all of that. Because they did not. I'd never experienced it from an officer that were discriminated against.
Did you, while you were at war, did you ever hear of the Escuadrón 201?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about them?
I know they were not in our area. We know that once they passed to the Philippines, and they announced on television that, not on television but on the radio, that the Mexicans had entered the war and that the Escuadrón 201 had just flown over. So everybody looks around and to see where they were, and all we could see was this P-47s going.
Did the U.S. provided them with airplanes, or did Mexicans have their own airplanes?
No, there were American planes. There were P-47s,
mm-hmm.
Thunderbolts.
How were they? Were you seeing? Were they able? Well, let me rephrase this question. How were you able to distinguish that they were Mexican?
They had a very distinguishable logo on the plane. The numbers were the same, Americans, but they had a logo of their own. And like I said, I never saw the planes. I'll only see the models when I go to Mexico City to visit them. Mm-hmm. And but they distinguished themselves in the war. The short time that they were there, and they came into the war because the Germans sunk a couple of ships out here at the Gulf of Mexico. So that's getting too close to home, So they sent this squadron who was already training in Texas and Arizona and here in California. They trained right here in Coronado. And there's quite a few survivors yet. Some of the older Escuadrón 201 have passed away, but those that are active, they come here to the parades. Like they're coming on the 11th of November, they're going to be here. They're going to be here with us.
Where do you guys parade? Where's your...
From the county offices up there on Harbor Drive, mm-hmm. Starting on Harbor Drive, come all the way through Harbor Drive, and we end up here on Market Street. It's about a 4-hour process.
Mhm. So, where were you when the United States dropped the atomic bomb?
I was in Seattle because we had been damaged between Okinawa and Japan,
Hmm.
and we made it back all the way back. It took us about what 15 or 20 days to get to Bremerton, Washington, where the ship was put in dry dock and to repair it.
What was your reactions regarding the bomb?
We It was a good reaction. I thought, well, thank God this thing is going to be over. Most certainly, they dropped the first one. I said they should be over now, but the second day when they didn't surrender, the second bomb came out. I said they got to surrender now. The two cities blown all to hell. They have to, and they did. They surrendered.
What do you think at the time that Germany had surrendered, but Japan was still active? What would, what was your reaction?
Okay, my reaction, tell you the truth, I had a lot of cousins fighting in Europe, and I would say, well, Japan cannot last much longer, but I hope that something happens that the people will not get to fight over here. They had enough, and it happened. Atomic bomb was dropped, and that was the end of the war. Some of my cousins were on ships already, going around the horn, around the canal, going with all their full equipment to the islands. They never made it. They turned back.
So from that point when the bomb is dropped, you went home.
No, no, I was sent back out to the Western Carolines to demolish army posts, excess material, and all that. And I remained there for another, I think, August, September, October, November, December, another 5 months, because I was eligible to come home on the point system, and you had to have so many points before you could come back. So one day, and they asked me if I wanted to stay in the United States, and I said no, I want to go overseas. So they sent me back overseas, and it was so peaceful and quiet that no more war. The islands were just so peaceful. And finally, my time came up, and they called my name, and so you're going home on points. All right, when do we get started? So I came on back home, went back to my hometown. My mother was sick. She got well, and I went to see her at the hospital. And I stayed in my hometown approximately 6 months. And then I said, well, this is not any good here. Things had not changed. It was discrimination. Still, I didn't fit in. Not even because we'd come back with a uniform and all the battle stars and all those ribbons, made no difference. So I headed out of that town and went on to Lubbock, Texas. And I was there. I was there in Lubbock. I traveled from Lubbock to Colorado and back, and I was actually in Lubbock, living there for about 3 years before the Korean War broke out. Me and my brother Sam were in the same reserve unit, active reserve unit, and we were the first ones that were called out of Texas to get back to the report for duty. report for duty. So our assignment was San Diego for further transfer. And we headed straight on out to Japan, to the Japan-Korea headquarters. He ended up on a communication ship. And I was on the ground forces, and I was in an office like this. I knew a little more. They found out I could type, so I was a yeoman. And registering transferees into the base, and also recording and helping move out sailors from the barracks that were being used to bring in the wounded from Korea. And those sailors would go on two ships that were on the harbor, new billeting.
So you didn't see no combat then, right?
No, but saw plenty of the results of the combat that was going on.
Did you want to go to, when you were called again to go back and serve, or did you have any motivation to go back, or haven't seen enough war? Did you felt maybe resilient to go back?
My brother and I talked it over, and we said, should we go? We've been ordered to go. Do we get a deferment? What can we say? I think that I could have gotten a deferment because of the family. I was married by this time. But I didn't. I just went. I guess that I was looking still for equality. Mm-hmm. I said, maybe this time we can do better. I came back, same shit. Nothing happened. Texas the same way.
On the issue of going to war and with the hopes that things would change, and then coming back and finding out that things didn't change, how did that make you feel inside?
Very bad. Very bad until things started turning around and the Negroes were being successful in their demands and all of that. Even though there was discrimination, they were very successful in some of the things. So we also were joining in with them. But now we had another issue here. We went in to defend the Mexicans that were here, and they were being discriminated even more so than us. The funny thing about it is that us Mexicans here are not looked upon too good from the Mexicans from over there. And they're damn fools because they don't know which ones of us are doing things to help them. So like last year and the year before, last election, we started registering more people and showing them this is the reason why we need your vote. We need your vote before we lose anything. So we have had more Mexicans responding to that than anything else. Even more so than Mexican Americans from here, because they're more politically involved over there. They know that they can make things happen, and we welcome that.
After World War II, and maybe this tied, is this was something you're involved with currently or in the past, registering people?
I have not registered this on because I know of the groups that are registering people. They're doing good. They're doing good. So I've kind of disassociated me. If I run across somebody that wants to be registered, I said, yeah, we'll do it right now.
Your experiences after World War II, you came back home. Did you go back to school? You went back to school and graduated?
After World War II, I graduated. Yeah.
And what you do afterwards?
I moved to Lubbock. Remember, I didn't remain in town for too long. And I went to Lubbock, and there I sought to get some employment, and I couldn't find any employment other than field work.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do any more field work. See, I'm running away from field work forever. So I entered barber college to supplement my income while I was going to college. And I became a barber, and I was doing really, really good in barber school.
And then,
And then things happened. Korean War broke out, and I'm gone.
mm-hmm. And how long did you last in Korea?
A year and a half.
Then you got this. You quit, or did they?
No. What happened? I lost a daughter while I was in Korea, while I was in Japan, and the Red Cross uh, requested that I be sent home on a hardship discharge, convenience of the government discharge. So I went home, and first of all, the Navy had given me leave to come over and see my daughter and see how my wife was doing. And I returned to Japan, and there I had papers waiting for me to get on back home. My wife was not doing too good, so I came on back home, and that's when I just came back and came right out to California.
Did you then practice your, um,
No, I was doing really good in barbering. I had a good clientele. I had the sheriff, a highway patrol. I was really doing good, making a good income, and I thought, well, I really don't want to stay here in Texas anymore. Enough is enough, so I came on to California, and I did better here. I went to Bakersfield College. It was a junior college at the time, and I couldn't find out. I'd taken accounting and bookkeeping and all that, and there was no place that I could find a job there. No place, because Bakersfield happens to be the center of redneck town. No job for you here, my friend. You know. So I says, okay. So I called my brother-in-law here in San Diego. I said, say, how about, is there any chance to go to work over there? So he said, yeah. He said, if you can make it here, he says, there's a job opening, several job openings here if you can make it by Tuesday. So I made it here by Tuesday, and I went to work for a company. I stayed with that company for 7 years. 6 months later, I was a foreman for the company, and I was for 7 years. I was their foreman in different jobs.
what was your duties as a foreman?
Um, as a foreman, we had to do the you work with a superintendent from the job, and they give you an assignment of certain sections of a building. My experience in construction was all heavy duty buildings, the high-rise buildings and all that. So you're first of all you're told to learn the plans, because when you get assigned to a certain area, they want you to be there. So we would plan on a certain floor the duties that had to be assigned for different individuals according to their experience. And so those were one of the main things. And after that, they get going during the day, just, patrol the area back and forth and see that everybody's doing their thing.
Did you build any buildings here in Center County?
Yes. I have I have a list over there that I was looking just before you came in. Uh, and it has all the jobs that I did here up for 14 years that I was at the trade. Then selected by the union to be a representative, and I was given an office in Escondido. So I lasted there for 14 years.
What was your duty? What were your duties as a representative?
Dispatch people to jobs and follow through and follow complaints, see that their benefits were paid into the trust funds and so on.
And what union? What union are you talking about?
Laborers Local 89. It's a construction union here in town. It's we used to have 20,000 members. We don't anymore.
So what local projects did you got involved with eventually here in San Diego?
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me see if I can get that.
No, actually that's fine. But
Okay.
and last time you mentioned did you guys build the Memorial County Hospital,
Yeah.
Grossmont Hospital?
Grossman Hospital. There's a no. That's those are the medals that I got. Then pick up the other one. Yeah. See, general labor foreman, foreman stripping, foreman pusher, field timekeeper, and laborer. The responsibilities involved all phases of heavy construction work required of labor crews, including supervising, timekeeping, public relations, field office, expediting, and liaison between other projects in the area. A carpenter's helper, all phases of concrete work, including form layout, form stripping, wood and metal sawing, use of concrete vibrators, rigging, signaling, sandblasting, use and repair of pneumatic and power tools, that is chipping hammers, jackhammers, electric concrete, grinding machines, and so on. Site preparation for concrete, rub, soft grading, fine grading, foot excavation, guinea chasing, grade checking, demolition, including cleanup, pipe laying, including cast iron, concrete, PVC, clay, corrugated, and galvanized. This happens to be a 1953 to 1966. Worked in the labor's construction industry on such heavy construction projects as high-rise buildings, bridges, highway construction, so on and so forth, for a variety of companies, including the following. Now, in this here included the high-rise buildings, Marston's downtown San Diego, the high-rise building of Home Tower. It was a bank building, 19-story high. That was the highest that I've ever taken. Then there was County Hospital, demolition of the old existing hospital and the building of a new one. The building of Sharp Hospital down on Highway 163 from beginning to end. From there was Grossmont Hospital at Grossmont, the first phase of it, which was also a high-rise. The courthouse downtown, which was a multi-million-dollar project there. The jailhouse also down in C Street, another multi-million-dollar project. And in between, there were other smaller jobs. The stadium, San Diego Stadium.
You worked in it?
I worked at it.
Was that one of your base projects?
That was one of my last projects. That happened to be the last project in San Diego, because I got an offer from Anaheim to go and run a crew for All Village and Fulton, and that was on the freeway, Interstate 5. And so I went up there because it was 7 days, 16 hours a day, and so I needed the money. And I took off and went up there, and was only temporary because the local down here called me back and said, you're going to go to work in Escondido. So I stayed in Escondido for 14 years. Mm-hmm.
Besides those projects, were you involved politically in the community?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we had a group with the Hermandad Mexicana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's a pamphlet over there that's I was looking at it also before you all came in. That through the Hermandad Mexicana, we were politically involved to the sense that we were demanding of those to be elected what we needed here in San Diego, first of all. We were very much involved in the Viva Brown campaign, which was our governor, Governor Brown. He was from Texas. He was a governor here for many years. Then his son was governor next to him. His son is now mayor of Oakland. So we were involved in the races for.
What years were this when Hermandad kind of started?
Okay, in the bottom drawer of that desk over there, up towards the back of the drawer, there's a little magazine-like thing. That was in 1950, from 1953 to 25 years later, at which time we,
1975, maybe?
yeah, we turned it over to, it's a little green brochure-like magazine. It's in there. Yeah. We turned over the organization to, because see, we could not get any further to the things that we were doing. We had to get somebody to take it further, and so we turned this over to what's his name? He's an attorney. He's an educator. Bert Corona. You heard of him?
Here's a book, yeah. I read his book.
Okay. Bert Corona. And he took this thing, and we made this Hermandad Mexicana San Diego County. We made it a national thing. We turned it over to him, and he ran with it. There's a chapter in every city in the United States. So we're very involved with this thing.
Politically, that was a focus for politically. And what are the things that you guys focused on? What are the issues?
Work
Related?
Work
specifically?
Related. Specifically work related. We were the defenders of our union here in town. We were the motivators to equalize the union basis for equality. And
Local 89, was that mainly Mexican?
No, it was whites and blacks and Mexicans. But it was not until 1952 that they finally elected a Mexican in there, which was Jose Luis Hernandez. He was the secretary there. And then there's Frank Peñuelas, who was the secretary-treasurer, and then John Felix, who was president. And from there on, we started electing Mexicans.
Penetrating more
and more. Today, they're going in equal. Same, 3 of each kind in everything. Yeah.
Were you involved in any other political organization during the civil rights movement?
Other organizations?
Around that time, for example, Cesar Chavez.
Oh, yeah, Cesar Chavez, yeah. See, in 1966, he started the movement of boycotting grapes in the state of California because the ranchers did not, yeah, right, they didn't want for Caesar to integrate the farms because of the change in pay and everything else. But we helped Caesar. As a matter of fact, he came to request help from San Diego, and I was at every meeting that he was ever here in San Diego. So I went and volunteered at a home that I had. It was vacant at the time, so had about 18 strikers in there, and for about 6 months.
Why did you were so involved with them?
I came from the farms. I knew what they had to do. I knew what they had to do, and even to this day, if they call a strike, if he calls a strike anywhere, we will support it. Come from the planeta bird corona, mira. But this is another active guy. Here's Carmen Vaca. This is a resolution I wrote for the Mexican movement.
Mexican movement.
The Mexican movement.
What?
Well, actually, to defend the undocumented worker.
Did you feel that the Chavez movement you felt very personal because come from the farms?
The Chavez movement.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was
You felt part of you was there.
right.
Did you get involved with the GI Forum?
I still belong to it, as a matter of fact, but we're not too active here in San Diego at this time, though we should be. There was some disagreements down at they had a meeting in Fresno somewhere, and they had a parting of the ways down there. So actually, they're not too active right now, as far as I'm concerned. I think that somebody or something did something that's not acceptable to the majority. So how they will come out at these elections, I don't know.
This organization, Hermandad Mexicana, you mentioned last time that that this organization eventually evolved to the Chicano Federation.
Yeah, we did. The Chicano Federation. The Chicano Federation was, and I was a member of it. I was assigned to go to get it started and all that. I was involved in it until they started doing some things. And I even forget the name of it. Jess Haro was one of the administrators there for one time. But before him, there was a girl by the name of Rachel who was very involved in it. And
Rachel Ortiz?
No, it was not Rachel Ortiz. It was another one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know Rachel Ortiz over here at Barrio Station.
Mm-hmm. The MAC project. What was your role in the MAC project?
The MAC project, I was in the advisory council. So she's there with Phil Luscano, myself, John Felix, Ross Coda, and a few others. Our assignment was to get somebody there to oversee the program overall. And we picked on a young man by the name of what's his name. He's still there, by the way. Done a great job. Done a lot of projects. Right now they're building something like a 600-unit apartment complex up in Spring Valley.
It's low income housing.
Yeah.
What is the exact role of the MAC project, as you understand it?
As I understand it. Well, God, I mean, there's no limit to what they're doing.
Is it a government?
It's a government-funded project.
Mm-hmm.
Each year they've been doing better and better. You know, there's a lot of money involved for housing. There's about everything that a family may need that they will find assistance for right there at the MAC project. Mm-hmm. In the original MAC project, most of the people that were there, we left there. Mm-hmm. And then they retired. They got old, and then they went by the wayside, and they pick up new ones. Which some of the new ones I don't know, but I do know the administrator and his assistant, which can't think of his name now. All of his brothers are judges. Yes, but he seems to be doing very well, holding on to his own.
What's your view of the Vietnam War?
Well, there's something that should have never happened, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should have never happened because we didn't win that war. We were not allowed to win it. My view always has been that it was an industrial battle.
What do you mean by that?
By that I mean that industrialists, which are very very wealthy, were supplying all kinds of equipment to uh, possibly to both sides. They're very very some very wealthy people that they will not allow one thing to lie still. They need a movement. So they started. Even the president lied about this. Why they started the Vietnam War. See, Johnson claimed that our ships was fired on. Later on, they announced that no ship was ever fired on, and that's really really tough. Um, the Vietnam War was something that should have never happened, and I went to Washington D.C. to demonstrate against it.
Were there a lot of other World War II veterans there?
Quite a few, quite a few Korean veterans too. Because see, us in Korea, who were never allowed to win that war, came back with a dissatisfaction of why not.
Mm-hmm.
When we knew we had the means,
Mm-hmm.
they would just turn us loose.
Mm-hmm. Any Mexican World War II veterans there?
There's quite a few Mexican veterans.
That were demonstrating?
Yeah.
How about the Gulf War? What's your view?
Now, what they did at the Gulf War is something they should have done with Vietnam. They had the capability of doing it. So why didn't they do it? What's the difference? They had the capability of going in, doing the job, and getting out. So I think that it was good that the war didn't last any longer. It was good that we didn't lose any lives, to my knowledge. And hopefully the other wars will be like that. Throw everything in it and let's get it over with.
You said something interesting earlier regarding the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think wars are plotted by individuals sometimes? Or agitated?
Agitated, maybe. Somebody that has enough pull of strings back here so that something will happen over here. And here's where the industrialists come in, the people that sell equipment and weaponry and all of that. I think that they have a feeler out there where they can do these things in the background.
Money.
Money.
What is your view of war, having lived that period of?
Each time that there has been a war, I always hope that there will never be another one. See, we fought World War II supposedly to end all wars. And 5 years later, here's the Korean War. And then in the 60s, here's the Vietnam War. So what's the sense of it? We just hope that we don't have another war, so our kids don't have to go.
You think war is good?
nomás para desahogar gente, you know, not good at all.
What kind of message would you give to the youth? Um, did you advocate the military for some youth, or do you what kind of message do you give the youth?
The youth should, I don't have a message for them per se. The only thing that I have to tell the youth of today is to get educated. And if you don't have enough or enough to go to college, get in the military to pick up a 50 grand so you can go to college. Because everybody's offering 50 grand now. Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force. And so what a chance. What a beautiful chance to pick up some good money.
Do you think education is good for? Do you think education is a key for?
Education is good. And it would be a good deterrent to any future wars. Because some of our people are very, very wise, especially after they learn and try to get their input in reference to why they should not go, why there should not be a war.
Hey, Mr. Alcoser, thank you again for your valuable time and
Okay.
your knowledge. And this concludes our interview.
All right.